On the way home from a huge Easter family party in Charleston when I was 16, I got into a horrific accident on I-26. The doctors said I needed emergency surgery within the hour or I would not make it. My mom and my little sister were at an upscale spa that afternoon. When the hospital put her on speaker, my mother's exact words were, "If she doesn't pull through, just let me know later. We are in the middle of a treatment and I am not signing anything right now." My name is Julia Carver, and I am 21 now. 18 days later, when I finally opened my eyes, the chart at the foot of my bed had been quietly updated. It no longer listed my mother as my legal guardian. Someone else's name was there instead. And that new guardian was the one person who had never walked away. I grew up in a big white house on James Island just outside Charleston. My dad died of leukemia when I was 6. One week he was teaching me how to ride a bike in the driveway, the next week he was gone. After the funeral, the only person who still showed up every single weekend was my mom's father, Clarence Brooks. Everyone in the county knew him as the former police chief who never really retired. He just traded the badge for a fishing rod and a porch swing. He would pull up in his old Ford pickup, bring me shrimp and grits from his favorite spot on Shem Creek, and let me sit in the front seat while he told stories about chasing bootleggers down back roads. To me, he was not Clarence. He was just Grandpa, the one adult who never canceled. My mom, Harmony Carver, grieved for about a year. Then she met Colin Reed at some charity gala downtown. Colin owned half the new construction on Kiowa Island and drove a black Range Rover that always smelled like new leather. 2 years later they got married in a beachfront ceremony I barely remember. 9 months after that, my little sister Haven arrived, blonde, loud, and instantly the center of the universe. Suddenly there was a nursery, a nanny, and a whole new set of rules. My bedroom got moved to the back corner over the garage so Haven could have the bigger room with the balcony. My soccer trophies disappeared into boxes in the attic. My mom started introducing me as my older daughter, instead of saying my name, like I was an extra in someone else's family photo. By the time I turned 14, I was basically invisible. Colin paid for everything, but he rarely looked at me unless I was in his way. Haven got new clothes every season. I got handed down uniforms from the private school I did not even attend. The only place I still felt wanted was Grandpa's little brick house in West Ashley, 20 minutes over the bridge. He kept my old bike in the garage, kept the freezer full of popsicles, and never once asked why I spent every free weekend there. He already knew. Easter weekend when I was 16 was supposed to be different. Grandpa threw his annual cookout. 3 long tables under the live oaks, low country boil, deviled eggs, sweet tea in mason jars. Cousins I had not seen in years flew in. Kids running everywhere, music playing, charcoal in the air. I wore the pale yellow sundress Grandpa bought me the month before because he said it matched my eyes. For a few hours, it almost felt like the old days, like maybe I still belonged somewhere. Then I overheard my mom on the phone by the dessert table. She was laughing, telling someone she and Haven had booked a mother-daughter spa day the next morning. Facials, massages, the whole package. After that they were flying to the Bahamas for spring break, just the 3 of them, her, Colin, and Haven. My name never came up. I stood there holding a plate of banana pudding, feeling it go cold in my hands. I told Grandpa I had a headache and needed to head home early. He tried to convince me to stay, but I could tell he sensed something was wrong. I just wanted out. He handed me the keys to the 1998 Jeep Wrangler he had helped me buy with my summer lifeguard money. "Drive careful, baby girl. Text me when you get there." I promised I would. It was already getting dark when I hit I-26 westbound. A spring storm rolled in fast. The sky went that strange green color, rain coming down in sheets. Wipers going full speed and still losing. Traffic slowed to a crawl. I turned the radio up to stay awake, some old country song Grandpa loved. Headlights blurred into streaks of white and red. I never saw the tractor-trailer until it was too late. The driver hydroplaned, jackknifed it across 3 lanes, and slammed into the driver's side of my Jeep doing at least 60. Metal screamed. Glass exploded. The world flipped twice, roof caving in, then we slid to a stop upside down against the median. I remember the seat belt cutting into my shoulder, the taste of blood, the sudden silence after the crash. Then nothing. Somewhere far away, sirens started coming toward me. The emergency room at MUSC was chaos. Doctors shouted codes. Monitors screamed. Someone kept yelling for more O-negative. They wheeled me straight into trauma. My clothes were cut off in seconds. Needles went into both arms. A tube went down my throat. A surgeon in blood-spattered scrubs leaned over me and rattled off everything that was wrong. Pelvis shattered. Spleen ruptured. Internal bleeding. Head trauma. Less than an hour before things were irreversible. They needed parental consent to take me to the operating room immediately. A nurse with kind eyes grabbed my phone, scrolled to Imam, and hit FaceTime. The call connected on the third ring. I heard spa music. The low hum of massage chairs. My mother's face appeared, sheet mask on, cucumber slices over her eyes. Haven was stretched out on the table next to her, earbuds in, scrolling TikTok. "Mrs. Reed, this is Nurse Alvarez at MUSC Trauma," the nurse said, angling the camera so Harmony could see my face, swollen and bloody, ventilator tube in my mouth. "Your daughter has been in a severe accident. She has life-threatening injuries and requires emergency surgery. We need verbal consent now or she may not survive the next hour." Harmony peeled one cucumber slice off and squinted at the screen. Haven pulled out an earbud and leaned in. The trauma surgeon stepped into view. "Ma'am, we are looking at multiple fractures, internal bleeding, possible brain swelling. We have to operate immediately." Harmony sighed like someone had asked her to move her car. "If she does not make it, just call me when it is over," she said, voice flat. "We are in the middle of a treatment and I am not driving all the way downtown to sign papers." Haven let out a short sharp laugh. Covered her mouth, then snapped a screenshot of my face on the gurney. Her thumbs flew over the screen. Later, I would learn what she sent with it. Finally some peace. The nurse's hand trembled holding the phone. A doctor behind her muttered, "Jesus Christ." Someone else whispered, "Save that call." The nurse tried one more time. "Ma'am, this is a legal requirement for a minor, we need authorization." Harmony cut her off. "Call my father, Clarence Brooks. He will handle it. We paid for a full day here." She hung up. The trauma team stared at the blank screen for half a second. Then they moved. They scrolled to the next emergency contact. Grandpa. Grandpa had been cleaning shrimp on his porch when the hospital called. The second he heard "Julia" and "critical," he dropped everything and floored it across the bridge, still wearing rubber boots and an apron stained with fish. Rain hammered the windshield. Lightning flashed. He made a 25-minute drive in 16. He burst through the ER doors soaked, badge from 30 years ago still clipped to his belt. The charge nurse took one look at him and waved him straight through. He signed every consent form they shoved toward him without reading a single line, his hand shaking so hard the pen scratched the paper. They let him into the bay long enough to see me, tubes everywhere, face swollen, skin gray. He leaned close to my ear and whispered the same thing he used to say when I had nightmares. "I have you, baby girl. Grandpa's right here." Then they rushed me to surgery. He dragged a metal chair to the glass wall outside the operating room and sat. He did not move for 9 hours. Not when nurses offered coffee. Not when the waiting room emptied. Not when a storm knocked the power out and backup generators kicked in. When they finally wheeled me to ICU just before dawn, he followed the bed, still holding my hand. The next 18 days were the longest of his life. ICU smelled like antiseptic and fear. Machines beeped and hissed in a rhythm that never let you forget how thin the line was. Grandpa claimed the vinyl recliner beside my bed and refused to leave. Nurses tried to send him home the first night. He showed them the old badge in his wallet and said, "I am not going anywhere." After that, no one argued. He slept in 30-minute snatches, head tipped back, boots still on. When he woke, he talked to me. He told me about the night I was born, how he held me first because my mom was too exhausted. The summer we caught a 5-foot shark off Folly Beach Pier and he let me reel it in. He read from a worn copy of To Kill a Mockingbird and did all the voices. Sometimes he just hummed the old hymn his mother used to sing. Doctors came and went. One neurologist said the swelling in my brain was finally going down. An orthopedic surgeon warned my pelvis might never heal perfectly straight. Grandpa listened, nodded, asked pointed questions, then went right back to holding my hand like nothing they said would change that. On day 16, my numbers finally started moving the right way. My blood pressure stabilized. The ventilator settings dropped. A nurse caught Grandpa smiling for the first time in 2 weeks. That same afternoon, while he was leaning close whispering that the redfish were running and we would go fishing as soon as I woke up, a man in a navy suit appeared at the ICU door. It was Mr. Donovan, an attorney who had worked cases with Grandpa years ago and still played poker with him. He held a thick folder. Grandpa gave one slow nod. No words needed. Donovan drove straight to James Island. Harmony and Haven were in the foyer surrounded by designer luggage. 2 matching pink suitcases were by the door, tags already attached for a 7-night cruise out of Charleston that was leaving the next morning. Colin was upstairs on a work call. Haven was filming herself in a new sundress for Instagram. Harmony was checking passports. The doorbell rang. Donovan introduced himself, handed over the envelope, and waited while she ripped it open. Inside were 2 sets of papers. An emergency petition to strip her parental rights for medical neglect of a minor. And a civil claim tied to the hospital's extraordinary life-saving expenses and my pain and suffering. Both listed Harmony Reed. Haven was named in the records as a participant in the refusal. Harmony's face went white under the spray tan. Haven stopped recording mid-spin. You have 72 hours to respond, Donovan said. Calmly. After that, the judge will proceed with the emergency hearing. Harmony started yelling about lawyers and mistakes and, how dare anyone question my parenting. Haven burst into loud tears about her spring break being ruined. Donovan turned and walked back to his car. Back at the hospital, Grandpa never told me he had pulled that trigger. He just kept sitting in that chair, humming that same hymn, waiting for my eyes to open. 2 days later, they did. Everything hurt. My mouth tasted like metal and plastic. The lights were too bright. The first face I saw was Grandpa's. Unshaven. Eyes red-rimmed. Smile so wide it looked painful. Hey, baby girl, he whispered, voice breaking. Welcome back. I tried to speak. Only a rasp came out. He pressed the call button, then grabbed the whiteboard at the foot of the bed and tilted it toward me. In thick black marker, someone had written, Legal Guardian, Clarence Brooks. I stared until the letters blurred. Tears ran into my ears. He wiped them away with a thumb that still smelled like shrimp and salt. Over the next hours, between nurses checking vitals and doctors shining lights in my eyes, he told me everything. The FaceTime call. My mother's exact words. Haven's screenshot. The papers. He did not sugarcoat it. I cried again, but this time it was from relief. Because the worst thing I had always secretly feared, that I was alone, turned out not to be true. Someone chose me. 3 weeks later they discharged me. Not to James Island. To Grandpa's small stilt house at Folly Beach. He carried me inside, slow and careful. The salt air hit my lungs immediately. My new room had been his tackle room. He had painted the walls pale blue and hung the same wind chimes we made when I was 9. From the window I could see the ocean, gray and endless. Physical therapy started that Monday. I learned to sit up, then to stand, then to shuffle behind a walker while Grandpa hovered like I was 2 years old again. He cooked shrimp and grits almost every night because it was soft enough for my healing jaw. We watched the sunset from the porch swing, his arm around my shoulders, not needing to talk. One afternoon my phone rang on the counter. Mom, flashed on the screen. I watched it. Buzz until the call timed out. Grandpa watched me, saying nothing. I hit decline, turned the phone face down, and went back out to the porch. That was her only attempt. Across town, Colin quietly filed for divorce. His company had just landed a big contract and he wanted distance from the story. He moved out of the James Island house. Haven ranted online for a few days, then went silent when people started sending her screenshots of her own messages. Grandpa never used their names unless I did. They made their choice, he said once. Now we make ours. Some nights the pain jolted me awake and I screamed. He would shuffle in, sit on my bed, and hold my hand until the meds kicked in. Other nights I woke to the sound of him praying in the living room, asking for just a few more years to see Julia whole. By the time the casts came off and braces replaced them, I could walk the length of the pier without stopping. Grandpa bought 2 rods and a bucket of bait. We sat at the end, lines hanging over deep green water, catching almost nothing. We did not care. One evening, standing there with the wind whipping my hair and the ocean moving steady under us, I realized something. I was not waiting for their apology anymore. I did not want one. Months passed. There were court dates. The FaceTime call was played on a big screen. The judge heard my mother say, "If she doesn't make it, call me when it's over." She saw the screenshot Haven sent with my bloody face and a joke about finally getting peace. Temporary custody became permanent termination of parental rights. The big White House went into foreclosure. Harmony lost her job. Haven lost her scholarship. They moved to a small apartment off the highway, then later out of state. I did not follow where. What I focused on instead was healing. Outpatient rehab at MUSC. Learning to climb stairs again, then walk without a limp. Therapy with a trauma counselor named Dr. Rivera, where I finally said out loud that I did not want contact with my mother ever again. Grandpa drove me to every appointment. He waited in the lobby or in his truck, radio low, windows cracked. He never rushed me. By the end of summer, I traded my cane for nothing at all. I still had a scar on my forehead, but I could feel myself coming back. 7 months after the crash, my final court day came. I walked into the courthouse under my own power. Grandpa was right behind me in his best suit. Harmony sat at the defense table in a cheap blazer, looking small. Haven stared at the floor. The judge did not need long. Permanent termination of Harmony's parental rights. Civil judgment for the hospital and for me. Full adoption approved for Clarence Brooks. Just like that, on paper, my last name changed. In real life, it already had. 3 weeks later, the adoption certificate arrived in the mail. I signed it slowly. Julia Brooks, I cried harder signing that than I did waking up in ICU. Grandpa framed the certificate and hung it above the fireplace next to my dad's old service photo. Life started to look like a life again. I finished high school at a small alternative program near Folly. Teachers knew my name. No one knew my story unless I chose to tell it. I made honor roll every term and got into the College of Charleston, close enough to come home for dinner any night I wanted. Graduation day was warm and windy. When they called my name, I walked that stage with a small limp and a big smile. Grandpa waited at the bottom of the steps in his dress uniform. I ran straight to him and he lifted me off the ground like I still weighed nothing. 5 years have passed since that Easter. I am 21 now, with a psychology degree on the wall. I work with a nonprofit in Mount Pleasant that helps kids who have been through things people do not want to admit happen inside good families. Every time I sit across from a teenager who believes no one will ever choose them, I get to tell them they are wrong. Someone can. Someone will. Because someone chose me. Grandpa turned 77 last month. He still mows his own yard. He still outfishes every charter captain in town. The house on stilts is the same. Wind chimes at the front, porch swing in the back, coffee always on. My room is still pale blue. He still calls me baby girl at least once a day, usually when he hands me a glass of sweet tea. I still call him Grandpa. Nothing else fits. Harmony and Haven left South Carolina for good 3 years ago. Last I heard they were somewhere in Georgia, different town, different names. I do not look for them. They do not look for me. The silence is clean. It is final. It is peace. People sometimes ask if I am angry. I am not. Anger takes energy I would rather spend on living. They ask if I forgive. Forgiveness is not a switch. It is a door they would have to walk through. They never even knocked. What I do carry is gratitude. For the man who slept in a vinyl chair for 18 nights. For the hands that signed every form without hesitating. For the grandfather who turned his house into a home and his heart into my safe place. Family is not just blood. Family is the person who shows up when your blood is on an operating table. The one who stays. The one who chooses you when choosing you costs them everything. That is the only thing I know for sure. And that is my story.